Hello everyone, and welcome back to Revit Snippets. Great tips you can learn in just a few minutes. Today we'll take a deep dive into how to reduce your Revit file size as much as possible. This is supposed to be a comprehensive guide or a complete checklist of things you can do to trim away all the fat in your Revit file and make it smaller. By the way, if you are new to this channel, make sure to subscribe now, because we do tutorials like this every single week. Okay, let's get straight to business. This checklist will of course have things you already know, but for completeness, let's do all of this anyway. The first step to reduce the file size of any Revit file is obviously to do a Purge Unused. If you are new to this concept, Purge Unused means we tell Revit to scan the model here for anything not in use or redundant. In one single command, you can identify these objects and delete them. So to begin, let's go to Manage and click on Purge Unused right there. Now this model is quite small, but if you are working on a big job, it may take a few seconds to actually find out all the things you don't need anymore in the file, so be patient. Right now I have on my window here almost 500 items that I no longer need and can be deleted. Doing this is really safe because deleting those elements here will not change your model appearance or data in any way. The only downside of doing this is, let's say you have loaded into the file a few new family types and you haven't used them yet, but you plan to. If you do this, those unused family types will also be removed. And depending on the situation, that may not be what you want. Anyway, if you are looking up this checklist, then there's a good chance you just want to now bring down the file size as much as possible. So let's proceed with this command. In here, of course, before you do OK, there's nothing stopping you from going up here and checking out all the things that this command will now delete. For example, I have here an elevation type that nobody is using. Or if I go to floors, I have a few there that are floor types, but not used in the model. These are categorized into a few groups. Firstly, we have the views, and then families. And if you go down a little, you have other things as well. One thing to notice is this command also will remove any unused materials in the project. So I can see there, all of them here are the materials I no longer need. So I'm happy with this. Let's click on OK. And just like that, all of those almost 500 items have been deleted for me. Anyway, this is the basic way to use Purge Unused. What most people don't know is this. It's never enough to do Purge Unused just once like we did there. You have to do it 3 times at least. There's a reason for that, and this is why. Let's say I want to put a view just to wireframe mode. And I can then select easily this chair there. When I go to Edit Type, I can see this chair here is using 2 materials, one for the feet and one for the cushion or cover. These materials are now in use, and that means when I did the Purge Unused command before, they were not deleted. Let's say I now cancel out and select all the chairs of this family type in the file. I can see I have 7 of them there. If I now delete them, these materials may become redundant if there's no other family in the project using them apart from this chair family there. So, for me to delete those materials, I can then do Purge Unused like I did just now, because nothing else will be dependent on them anymore. That's what the first Purge Unused we did actually performed, in terms of checking for dependency. Now, the reason you have to do Purge Unused 2 more times is this. If I now go to Manage, and then open Materials, if I now pick just a random one, maybe this door frame material there, I can now go to Appearance, and what I'm looking at right now is the material asset that decides how this material will look like in this preview and also in the model. If you want to see those material assets in the collection you have there in Revit, simply turn on this panel here. That's the material library panel. If you don't have this, just go up here, and by toggling this button, you can bring it up for you to see. So this asset is very similar to what I have here in this list. I have here the list for the AEC material assets. If I now go maybe to wall, or let's say wood, we have here this material there, and that's the material asset that you can bring into the project. The idea is you can have multiple materials sharing the same appearance asset, Let's demonstrate that now. If I now right click on this material there and choose duplicate, I have now the old material and the new one. When I go to the right there and change this color to something else, maybe to blue, and do OK, you can see we have changed not just this new material, but also the previous one. This is because even though I duplicated the material, these two materials there, they still share the same appearance asset. Now, back to the concept of purging unused. If this material were deleted in our first purge unused, it may have made some material asset redundant. To clean up these assets, we have to do a second purge unused. Let's see if I go back to manage now and do purge unused from here. You can see now we have materials that are redundant and also material assets. These materials, they just became redundant because in the first purge unused, we actually deleted some families that were using them. On the other hand, these material assets, they belonged to some materials that were deleted in the first purge unused, and now they have become free. We can also delete them. Let's do that now. I can now do OK to delete over 100 materials and material assets. Okay, it doesn't stop there though. If I now go back to manage and do purge unused one more time, this time I only have material assets to delete. Where did they come from? Well, they come from the redundant materials that I deleted in the second purge unused, and that's why I can now see them here and delete them, all 19 assets. Now finally, when I go to purge unused again, this number is 0. That means I have deleted everything redundant in the model that this tool can scan and recognize. Anyway, the job here is not done. If we want to reduce the model file size as much as we can't stop here because there are certain things that this Purge Unused tool doesn't touch. So let's proceed with the second step. The second step is about removing obsolete CAD objects in your Revit model. If I now go to this plan view, for example, this file here is quite clean at the moment because it came straight from Autodesk, obviously. But let's say we want to bring in here some AutoCAD information. We can go to Insert there and then Import CAD. I can then select one of those files here. Maybe I can bring in this chair there, just a plan view representation. And I want to place it just in this view. And I want to also specify the origin of the object in Revit manually. Let's do open now. And as certainly enough, we can now place the chair maybe here. So this chair is quite small. It doesn't increase the file size that much. But imagine you have in your Revit file maybe a big floor plan from AutoCAD, or maybe some even 3D CAD objects from programs like SketchUp. The more we do this, the bigger this Revit file will be, because anything you use this button here, Import CAD, to bring into the model, will be embedded into Revit. If this CAD file, for example, is about 2 megabytes big, what I just did right there will have increased this Revit file size by the same amount, if not more. So let's see what we can do here to fix this. The first fix to apply is even before you bring in things like this. When you want to bring in CAD information into Revit, always try to use Link CAD instead of Import CAD. Let's try it out. If I now go to Link CAD now and select maybe this plan view of a closet right there and place it here into the view the same way as I did it with the chair. They look quite similar, but the difference is this CAD file here, no matter how big it is, its file size wasn't consumed by Revit. Revit simply linked it in and displayed it just here so we can see it. But if I go to Manage and then do Manage Links, I can see straight away under the CAD Formats tab that this closet is a linked object. Wherever I want to, I can simply unlink it or even remove it, and it won't be a part of the model anymore. So wherever you can, do Link CAD, not Import CAD. Anyway, I know that's something easier said than done. Let's say you have done this already. You imported a bunch of CAD files into your Revit model there. What can we do to fix this problem? Well, you can actually assess what you have brought in there, and if it's not required anymore, simply select it and delete it. Most of the time when you have CAD files in Revit, they are usually for reference only. So as long as you have used them and completed with referencing them, deleting the object is a sure way to bring down the file size. So let's do that now. And now it's gone. When I go to Manage and do Purge Unused again, you will see there we have this material that came from that object, and we can now delete it as well. However, all is not done for fixing that CAD object. This is because when you bring in CAD files to Revit, it grades not just the instance that we just removed, but also the file type that is needed to generate that instance. Let me show it to you. If I now go to visibility of this view and go to imported categories, that is the chair that we just removed. Even though it's gone now from the view and the model, its definition is still here. That's the same file name with the same extension, DWG. To actually remove this object definition, we need to delete this object as well, not just the instance. And here's how to do it. Firstly, let's see what people usually do. They usually go to Manage and do Object Styles. Under Imported Objects, they have this same CAD file there. They can then try to select this layer and do Delete Layer. And certainly that will remove the layer from the window. But still, as you can see, the main definition of the CAD file is still there. And when I have this selected there, I cannot delete the object. It's not available as an option. And also from here, just by looking at this window, I can see there's also another AutoCAD object that we didn't know about. So how do we remove these two definitions in an easy way? Well, Revit doesn't make it easy by default, but there are certain plugins that we can use to make this job easy. One of them is CAD File Explorer. If I now go to Add-ins, CAD File Explorer is there. Let's run it. This plugin, by the way, doesn't come with Revit by default, but you can try it completely for free. Just go down to this video's description and follow the link there to get your copy. Alright, so as I saw before, I have in this file two CAD object definitions, and right away I can see them here in the plugin. There are, however, different areas that we can investigate here. We have the first tab here for AutoCAD instances in Revit. Let's see where this one is. If I now go to here now and click on Show, it's not shown because it's a view-dependent object, but it's not visible in the view. Sometimes simply because it's lying outside of the view crop region. Let's see if that's the case. If I now zoom out here and uncrop the view just for a moment. Well, actually the view isn't cropped, so it must be invisible for some other reason. The good thing is, no matter if it's visible or not in this view, I can still see that it's there. To confirm, I can simply go to Manage and do Select by ID. I can now put in this same ID number there, 354 595. And you can see there, it is there, just not showing anywhere. This is one of the main reasons why your Revit file is big, because of these hidden objects that seemingly just don't show anywhere. The good news is, with CAD File Explorer, I can now quickly select this object and do Delete. And now it's gone. Same thing for this roof detail CAD file. This one actually is visible in the parent view. That means I can now select it here and do Show. And straight away I can see this one is in a drafting view called Roofing Termination Detail. If I don't need it anymore, I can simply do Delete. If I even made a mistake and deleted what I shouldn't have, I can always go up here and undo what I did. And you can see we undid the deletion of this object, so now it's back here. The second tab is to do with CAD types or definitions. For each object from AutoCAD you brought into Revit, Revit will create a definition for the object. We have here two objects, so we have here two definitions. If I now want to delete this roofing detail, and I don't even care whether it shows in one of my views, I just want it gone from all of my views. It's quick to do with this plugin as well. Simply select it here and do Delete. And certainly enough, I can see now it will delete one type and one instance for me. Let's now do OK. And as you can see, it has vanished. The same thing you can do for that one. So keep doing this. And if you have lots of CAD files imported or linked into the Revit file, you will certainly observe a big decrease in your Revit file size. Now, if you want to be very complete with your CAD file jack, make sure to also use the Family Scanner feature of CAD File Explorer. This is because some of your Revit families may also have CAD files embedded in them. So now, if I click up the scan, I can see this tool is now checking all of the loaded families in this Revit file here. If a family, for example, this room tag here has an imported CAD object, it will be flagged up. This is the only plugin for Revit that does this, and certainly that's a good step to do when you want to really minimize your file size of your Revit model. So in this case, we're good to go because there's no family with embedded CAD object. But in your project, the results can be really different. So watch out for this. Alright, so that's method number 2 for reducing your Revit file size. Moving on, let's look at step number 3, and that has to do with spatial elements. Let's look at some rooms. If I want to see them easier, I can now go to Visibility, under Rooms, tick the box for Reference, and maybe Interior View as well. So now by doing that, I have all of my rooms highlighted here for me. Let's select this one, Cafeteria, and now just delete it. You can see there, even though the room is gone now, there's a big warning on the corner. It's saying the room was deleted from the model views, but will still remain in the project. This is why sometimes you have removed all the rooms you don't need from the model, but somehow your file size still hasn't reduced. We need now a way to actually remove those objects for good from Revit. Simply go to View, go to Schedule, choose Schedule Quantities, and now just do a room schedule. Select room there. Make sure you tick the right phase that you want. So if I do now new construction, only rooms created on new construction will be included in this schedule. Let's do OK now. And to figure out which room was removed, I simply add this area column there. And just for identifying them as well, I can do room name and number. Click OK now. And here we go. I have all the rooms in this model here listed for me. Now to find those not placed, let's go back to Properties and do Filter. In here I can filter by area. Let's do is less than 0. And here we go. We have only unplaced rooms in this schedule now. If I now want to remove this for good, I can now select its row like this and delete. Before I do that, however, let me go back here and also delete 2 more rooms, because my intention is to show you how to do this quickly, not room by room. Back to the schedule, we now have 3 lines instead of 1, because now I have 3 unplaced rooms. I can now just click here and drag down until I have all the rows I want selected. It is now time for me to go up here to the ribbon and click on Delete. And this time here, this prompt is slightly different. If I choose to proceed with this, all 3 rooms will be permanently removed from Revit. That's what I want, so let's do OK. And now they are gone. If I now go back to this plan view and go to Architecture, choose to place a new room now, I have nothing here to select. Sometimes if you maybe, let's say, delete this room here, and then go to Room, you can actually place back in the model that room you just removed. But as you saw before, we removed the other 3 rooms, so now they are not even there. That's how we know they are gone now for good, and my Revit file size has reduced accordingly. Now, for some of you that don't work with rooms, but you do spaces, the concept is the same. If I go to Analyze now, and maybe place in here a few space separator, just so I can place some spaces here to demonstrate this. We can now do space and make one there. If I now select this and delete it, same warning appears. It has gone from the view but not the model. To make sure it's gone away for sure, we also have to do schedules. And this time, instead of picking rooms, I can do space. Let's add in the area field again. And this time, we also filter by area less than 0. And there you have it. That's a space we just deleted, which can now be removed for good. Just like that. Alright, so that's step number 3. Remove any spatial elements you no longer need, such as spaces, rooms, or areas. Moving on, let's look at method number 4 for reducing your Revit file size. And this one has to do with families. Let me show you what that means. If I now select this door here, for example, maybe let's pick one of the basic doors instead of curtain wall ones, because they are more weird. So let's say I want to pick on this one. Let's now edit a family. And as you can see, it's a very simple door. Let's try this. Let's go to Manage and do Purge Unused. You can see straight away, even for a simple family like this, it may still have redundant elements that you want to delete. In this case, it's not that bad because there are only 6 items here, but for some complex family, this number can be 2 or 3 digits. So it's very important that you do this. If I now go to OK now, those redundant objects are gone. Just the material access is left, and I can just delete it again like this. Purge and use again, now it's 0. I can now load this back into the project and let it run. So far so good. The problem, however, is in terms of scaling this operation. In here I just did it for one door, but what if your project has not 1 but 20 or even 100 door families? Doing this manually will take a bit of time. And it doesn't stop there. If I now select maybe a different family, something more complex. Let's say we pick on this little sofa there, and also edit family on it. Now here we are in the family. If I now go to families on the project browser, you can see apart from this couch here or sofa, we also have a nested components of the furniture category, and it is a table nightstand. I can now right click there and choose edit. So this family here, the whole thing, was nested into the sofa family, and that certainly has increased the file size of the family there. This one, even though it's nested, of course I can do manage and do Purge Unused, and it does have things to remove. So if I do this a few times, like I did on the sofa, I then have to load this one back into the sofa family now. Well, it's named couch, so that's the name I will use from now on. Override this, and in here, because the main family we haven't cleaned it, let's do it now. Purge and use 1, 2, 3, and then it will be 0, totally clean. We can now load this back to the project model, and just like that, now it's clean. So 2 problems here. You may have many families to do, and those families, they may have a lot of nested components for you to do as well. The purging unused of families, including nested families, will make you spend a lot of time. So what's the way around this? We need to use a plugin to do this for us quickly. Let's go to add-ins again and use RV Family Purge. This one also doesn't come with Revit, but you can also try it completely for free. Similar to Cut File Explorer, just go down to the video description to get a copy of this plugin here. So this one is a bit simpler than Cut File Explorer. I can now just maybe make it a bit bigger. And you can see all it does at this point is listing all the families we have loaded in the model. I have here all the doors, detail items, furniture as well. That's the same count that we have there. And also other things like planting, profiles, and so on. The main point of this plugin is that it will let you select what you need. So if I want to just clean up doors, I can now click there and select all the doors like that. Or I can also do furniture at the same time like that. Or if I'm very lazy, I can just do select all. And now all of these boxes have been selected for me. We can now do Purge Unused. It's going to warn the process might take a long time, but we know this is the case anyway. At least it won't be as long as doing this manually. So let's proceed by saying yes. Okay, so now it's kicking the action off. It opens each family we have selected, does Purge and Use 3 times, and also do the same for any nested components in each of the families we have selected. So all the things that I just demonstrated just now, that took me maybe 5 minutes. Multiply that by the number of families we have, in this case 74. All of that work is being done for me in the background automatically by this nice little plugin. Of course, with each family cleaned, RV family purge will also load the family back into this project model. So at the end, we will have the chance to see the real impact of this cleaning up process in the file here. Okay, so the whole thing is done. Interestingly, the last family is cleaned was the same one we just did before. That was nice to see it again. Anyway, let's do OK now. And of course, it will suggest us to do the Purge Unused 3 more times. Let's do that now. From Manage. And you can see, before this project was totally clean, the number here was 0. But after doing the RV family purge process, we now have additional objects we can remove. Let's do that now. And of course, a few more times. So, in this case, 9 more objects to delete may not have a big impact on this model file size, but keep in mind this one is really clean because it came straight from Autodesk as one of the example projects. If you've been working on a big job for months or even years with other team members, using this process with RV Family Purge may give you the bigger chance to actually reduce the file size of your whole Revit project. Alright, now let's look at the next step or method to reduce our file size even more. Let's go to another level, maybe this entry level there. And now I want to see some furniture. So actually, let me go up maybe. Oh, here we go. They're on the 3rd floor actually. So this one is to do with the best practice on using families. If you want to really reduce or minimize your model file size, this is the key thing to do. Let's say I have this couch here, and maybe this table and the 2 objects next to it. I can now make a group from this. Many people do this because then you can quickly see that's one single group there with different components. That's nice to have sometimes. But then the mistake people make is this. If they want to have this same set of items somewhere else, they usually just copy this group like that. And then even maybe a few more times. What just happened is they have put into the Revit model 4 different object definitions. Because here, even though those groups, they are copies of the same group definition, they actually are unique in a sense. If I now select this table here and the line on top of it, I can just delete it. And now this group is unique. It doesn't look like the other ones anymore. So overdoing this, which means you copy groups so many times and you have many group types in the model, will also make it bigger and less optimized. For this method, we need to ungroup everything that we can. So I can now just select all of those groups and do ungroup. By doing this, we have reduced the number of object definitions in the model from 1, 2, 3, 4 plus 1, 2, 3 because we have 3 object definitions in each group. That's 7 definitions in total. We have reduced that number from 7 to 3 because now there are no more groups for Revit to remember and replicate. You can also find groups under the project browser. Just go down near the bottom and expand this groups node. And also under here you can look at either detail groups or model groups. As you can see there, we have other groups here. If I want to see group 1, let's do right click there, select instances in the project. I don't have anything selected. It says here I have 1 model groups, but that's actually the group type, not the group instance. Let's now do it for this detail one. So with this one, I actually have 1 instance. As you can see there, detail group 1. To see it in the project, I can go to Manage, check the IDs of selection, copy this number there, go to Select by ID, paste the same number in, and do Show. And suddenly enough, that's the group there. I can now do OK to select it. So this one actually we can ungroup. Remember, there was only 1 instance of this group, so there's no point saving the group in the file anyway. Let's do ungroup here. And it still works the same way now. Starter track, how about this? Select all instances in the project. We have also 1 only, ungroup it. And under slab as well. Same thing in here, ungroup it. To reduce the model file size even more, I can go to Manage, Purge Unused. And now I can see straight away I have 1, 2, 3, 4, group definitions that are now redundant just by removing their instances. I can now do OK to remove those groups. And because groups don't really use materials, this number is now already 0. So the method here is to remove any groups you don't need and make sure you remove not just the instance, but also the group definitions. It should look like this: groups, detail model, without any children. Moving on, the next method to reduce your model file size in Revit will be to minimize, or actually, if possible, eliminate the use of design options. If you are new to the concept of design options, here's how it works. If I go to 3D now, click on this roof there, for example. I can go to design option from here, make a new option set. That will create for me one option below the set already. I can now do a second option like this. Do OK now. With this roof, it is now possible for me to add it to these options. So select it there and do add to option sets. Let's add it to both options under set 1. And now if I go to option set 1, option 1, that's one roof. If I go to option 2, that's a second group. All good to go now if I want to actually test out different configurations on this roof here. The thing is, we need to know where to stop with design options. Sometimes I see these options holding hundreds or thousands of objects, and they remain in the project model for years. That's not how this option is supposed to work. They are meant to be temporary. So for example, I can test out different options on this roof here, but at some point, maybe a few weeks later on, I need to go to here and make sure to make the primary options the only thing that I want to keep in the model. If not, if I don't do that and I have 100 objects there and 300 in here, that will weigh down my Revit file a lot because maybe option 2 is never visible anyway. But by keeping it here, I still have to store in my Revit model 300 additional objects for no good reason. Therefore, as soon as you have decided on which option to go ahead with, make sure you go in here, choose the option set name, and choose accept primary. By doing this, it will remove all the options and only keep in the main model the objects from the main option that we have made primary. Now, what if I wanted to keep option 2? Let's undo this so I can show you. We can now go back here, click on option 2 there and make it primary. Now that's the primary option. I can now go to option set 1. If I now do accept primary, option 1 will be removed and option 2, all of its components and elements will be moved to the main model. So let's do that now. That's it. That's done it. So the takeaway is minimize the use of design options. Keep the options for as long as needed, but not any minutes more. Alright, moving right along, let's look at views and sheets. These are also one of the main reasons why Revit files get to ridiculous sizes. So here, I have here my views, and under here I have different view types. The thing with Revit is, it encourages you to make views to check how 3D objects will display in 2D drawings, which is great. The problem is this: if I go to maybe this floor plan, and let's say I want to check out how these couches look in this elevation against the curtain wall there, I can just do a section like this, open the view, see if I like it. If not, I want to move maybe this couch to there, and then somehow I want to have another section there to look at just this couch, and I have it there as well. Oh, good so far. Well, not so good for the couch because now it's clashing to this column. But the point here is, you may be tempted to create lots of views during your work in Revit. It's much harder to remember to delete them, because each view here that we have added to the model will also increase the model size. So wherever you can, make sure to delete views you no longer need. In this case, if I don't need these two sections anymore, I can either delete them from the view like that, select and delete, or I can go to the browser, go to sections, and in this case I actually have created them as detail views, which is not good. but the point remains the same. Make sure I delete them from here, just like that. Sometimes it's hard though for a big team to remove views because some people will be afraid to delete something that maybe someone else on the team still need. That's why we usually recommend a policy. So let's say people can just go in here and create sections and elevation as they like that. But if they want to keep the view, they need to rename it. By default, Revit will give standard names in certain formats to your new views. So let's say I want to have a second section there. It is now section number 2. If I want to keep it, I have to rename it. So maybe long section AA, like that. And later on, when the model is audited, people will know that this section actually does something. Otherwise, things like section 1, 3D view 1, elevation 1, all those default names signify removal. They can then just select that and remove this default named view. Another way to do this is to include your initial in the view name. So if I want to do this, I can do TT, my initial, and then the actual view name. This way, when people go around to delete extra views, they will know this one belongs to me, and they may come ask me whether I still need this view or not. If not, then happy day, we can just delete it. Among all those tips in this video, this one may be the most difficult one to implement because it's not just technical, it's also how we manage the team and the project. But as long as you make sure people name things they want to keep, the task of deleting obsolete views can get a bit easier. So don't forget, views and sheets, make sure you delete anything you don't need from views and sheets. Moving on, the next step we can do to reduce file size is to sort out and delete obsolete view templates. What are view templates? Let me show you just very quickly. So if I want to keep this view setting because it's showing me my nice rooms here, I can now right click on it and choose to create a new view template from this view. Let's call this one rooms visible. And now these are the settings that this template will apply to any views using it. Let's do OK. If I now go to second floor and I want to see here my rooms as well, I can just do it either manually like that, or I can go to properties, view template, and choose rooms visible. And suddenly I have now my rooms showing up just like with the entry-level floor plan. That's all good and fine, but the thing is, sometimes the number of view templates in a Revit project file can be really high, especially because people have templates they no longer use. So if I go to View, under View Templates, I can say Manage View Templates. So here you can see already, even in this test project model that is supposed to be super clean, we have view templates that are not in use. I have here this one I just created just now, rooms visible, and showing here on the top right, I have this template used on one view only. If I go to site plan, I can see no view is using it. And the same for, I guess, all the other view templates in this project model, except for the one I just created. So to remove those obsolete templates, you simply go here, select them one by one. Unfortunately, there's no multiple selection here in this box, and then just delete them like that. Make sure you keep the one that you are still using. In this case, let's keep rooms visible and delete the rest. Now it's clean. You may ask me though, what if I delete the one I'm using for some views? Let's try that. Let's delete rooms visible. So good news, it's gonna warn you. This view is being used on one view or more, so what do you like to do? For now, let's cancel this because we don't want to take it away from this view there. So this step is quite simple. Moving right along again, let's look at the next tip on reducing your Revit file size. And that is to do with raster images. Let's see how we can clean them up. If I go back to my level view here again, and let's say I want to bring into my sheet for this level view an image. Let's go to floor plan then. Same view there. How about we want to have here a nice image of the building. Just go to insert and do image. Now I don't have much going on here in terms of imagery, but let's go for maybe this stair photo there. As soon as I have selected it, I can now place it on my view and resize it as I need to. So that's all good until it's not needed anymore. So if I now go in here and delete it, like someone else working with me may have done, we can see that it's gone, but its definition is still in the model. Similar to rooms, Revit keeps the definitions of objects, just in case you want to place a new instance of that same object again. Not good for file size though, we want that gone, that definition of the image. So how can we do that? This is how. Just go to Insert again. Next to the button where we used to bring in the image is Manage Images. And you can see straight away, this one will list all the images that I have ever imported into this model. That's a stair one I just did right there. But also we have this one from another photo file. And you can see from here, we can actually select the file type or definition and do place instance. It's gonna go back there. Let's undo this, however, because I want to show you how to delete the definition of that stair photo. Simply go here again, Manage Images, click on it, and do Delete. Now it's gone. It's not too bad in this case, because that image is tiny. But sometimes people put in images from Photoshop into Revit. These files there can be really big. I have seen images 50 megabytes big, and I have put it in here and maybe resize it so it's just tiny there in the corner. But still, the file size of the model has increased by 50 megabytes. So you can certainly delete those images like that if that 50 megabyte image is no longer needed. But what if we still need it, but it's too big for the size it will appear in Revit? This is something easier to fix if you are using a later Revit version such as Revit 2022. I'm in now Revit 19, so when I go to Manage Images, I only see the image, the name, how many copies are there in the file, and the path to the photo file. However, if I go now to my Revit 2022 window, I can go to Insert and do Manage Links. Under Images, I can see there we have a bit more information to work with. Just before this video, I brought in here the same image into Revit 22. And in here, except from certain things that we saw before, like file name, file preview, and the path to the file and the instance count, I also have the dimensions or size of the image. In this case, this one is quite big, so if I'm just placing it as a very small photo on a sheet, I might want to locate the original image file, in this case using this file path there, and maybe resize that image, make it smaller in things like Photoshop or even MS Paint. I can now go in here, select the image, and do Reload From, and then select a smaller version of the same image. By doing that, I can effectively reduce the impact that this image has on the file size of my Revit file. Also, in Revit 2022, you also have the option of linking in an image instead of importing it. So, in this case, similar to what we did with CAD files, I would suggest always try to link images instead of importing. This way, the file size will not get bigger just to store the definition of the image. And of course, if you don't use an image anymore, make sure to delete it. In this case, this image has no instance, the number is 0. I can just get it from here and do remove. And now it's gone. Okay, moving on. The next tip to reduce your file size in Revit is to minimize the number of in-place components you have in the model. Let's see why. If I now go in here and just create a new in-place component, from component, model in place. Let's say this will be a generic one. With a generic name, I can do just a simple extrusion for it. Finish the model. That's my in-place family. There's nothing wrong with in-place components if you just do it once like this for very complex situation. The problem arises where you try to copy it to multiple places. So if I now select this, I can do a copy of this same family there a few more times. If I do it 5 times like this, what I have just done is adding 5 object definitions to the Revit model. This is because each of the in-place components in here is unique. When I try to make this one a bit longer and a bit wider, You can see it doesn't affect the other copies. They are unique. Doing this to a certain extent will always increase the Revit file size more than necessary. So the recommendation is always not to use in-place components if you will be copying it around in your file. In this instance, it's much better to use external families instead of in-place components. So instead of doing file boxes like this, the proper way is to go to New, choose Family, and then select maybe the template you want to use. In this case, I will use generic model. And in here, we can apply the same thing to create something looking the same as before, like that, and load this into the model, placing it here. So now I have this one object. If I now copy it 5, 6, 10, 100 times, only one object definition has been stored in the model, because the other boxes, they are exact copies of the original one here. This is how we can effectively use the amount of file size available to store all of those objects. Doing this with in-place components certainly will make the model much bigger. Alright, so finally we are here. We have gone through all the tips and tricks of minimizing your Revit file size. The final tip is this: you should do a save as. This model here, for example, it could have been going on for months or years with different users. The thing with Revit is, it will always try to save some historical data in the model. So even when you have done all the steps mentioned previously in this video, the file size reduction will not be maximum. To reduce the file size as much as possible, you need to do this final step. Go to File, choose Save As, Project. And in here, just give it a new name, or you can even just save on top of the existing one. In that case, no need to change the name there. The key thing is this: you should go to Options and choose to compact the file. Compacting means it will recreate the file from scratch, so that the copy that you will create with this save here only contains the core necessary information that we will need to reconstruct the file. I will now choose Compact File there and do OK. Save it again. And this time, after the save and the compact, the file size we have will be the minimum. Alright, it has been a long video because I really want to show you all the steps that you can do to minimize your Revit file size. Some steps are best done manually, some should be automated with Revit plugins that you can find in the video description and try out for free. If you enjoy this lesson and want more like this coming every single week, make sure to subscribe to this channel now. For now, good luck with optimizing your Revit model, and I'll see you in the next lesson.